Okay, good evening, everybody. As you know, my name is Kevin Costello, and I'm the Mayor of Holyrood. So tonight we've taken on what we've asked is we've asked all three candidates in our district to come meet with council and ask the candidates some questions that pertain to issues we have in Holyrood and also in our district. So it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. George Murphy. First off, George, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for taking time during what I'm sure is a very busy schedule.
Oh boy.
And welcome you to the Town of Holyrood's 2021 Meet the Candidates Night. So I'll just get into a few rules of the procedure for tonight. So each candidate will be given a block of about 45 minutes for each meeting session. I will be the official timekeeper for the event. As you're going through your responses, once you get to the 1 minute mark of time remaining, I'll give you just a hand gesture. That means you have 1 minute left. I won't cut you off mid-sentence. I will let you finish your thoughts as required. After that, you'll be given 5 minutes then to introduce yourself, your party, and your leader, and why the citizens of Holyrood should vote for you and your party. Once we get the introduction out of the way, then we'll move into the questions. Again, you'll have 5 minutes to answer 5 to 6 questions, depending on time. And then at the end, we'll give you some time just for final remarks and just some final remarks from myself. So, with that being said, is that all clear, Mr. Murphy?
Clear as mud.
Sounds good.
It's all good.
Okay, so we'll get the timer going. Stand by. Okay, Mr. Murphy, you have 5 minutes to introduce yourself, your leader, and your party.
Sure. My name is George Murphy. I am the Liberal candidate running Harbour Main. The great historic district of Harbour Main. Lots of potential around here. Everybody knows me, I think, from my oil and gas issues. They've known me from my electrical issues, if you will. I've touched on a lot of matters, basically, when it comes to consumer items. I've also been a member of the Evening Telegram Community Editorial Board and had the chance many years ago to get my feet wet, I guess, in politics. I've got previous House experience between 2011 and 2015. A lot of municipal issues. I was the opposition critic, if you will, for municipal affairs, transportation, infrastructure, as well as Service NL at the time, and as well as that environment issues. So I've got a lot of experience behind me. There's a lot of advocacy that I've done for small town communities and large town communities, particularly when it comes to getting a share of the provincial gas tax revenue. That was something that I pushed in the House of Assembly. Move over legislation was a piece of legislation that I also managed to get government to do during my tenure in the House. So it was a very good experience, and like I said, I'm well versed as regards to the matters of the House of Assembly and the matters as they pertain to municipalities in particular. My party, of course, is my party, and I guess you could say we've got a pretty good platform, and I think is well balanced, is well costed, and I think I'm ready to go to work for my party. My party represents a change in direction. My party represents a new direction in tackling the province's debt and the problems associated when it comes to the costs of Muskrat Falls. So I'm ready for the challenge, and I'm ready also to support small communities and those people that are living within it. My goals, my personal goals, is to find common ground amongst all the communities that are here along our shore, anywhere between Conception Bay South and Clark's Beach, North River, Hodgewater Line, Mackesons, you name the community. I'm looking for that common ground. A big piece of that, I think, is going to come with plans, of course, when it comes to regionalization issues, taxation issues. Look for that common ground, pull everybody together, and push a common agenda for the people of Harbour Main. So I'm really looking forward to the challenge after voting day, whenever voting day actually ends, of course, where we've got an extended vote happening now. And when we actually will get the chance to go to work, who knows at this particular point in time with the COVID outbreak. But I am looking forward to it. looking forward to the challenges as well as the victories too. And I think that we have an awful lot to work on. And I think that we're all going to end up with raised hands at the end of it 4 years down the road after serving a term. So I'm really looking forward to going to work with each and every one of you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy, for your introduction there. So what we'll do now is we'll move into the questions. So I've provided you with the questions in advance, and we'll just run through them as they're seen on the piece of paper. We won't try and mix them up to stumble anybody up or anything like that. So the first question is, the subject is cost shared funding for your municipalities. So the cost of providing reliable infrastructure to residents is challenging from the perspective of raising prices for project completion and the ability for small towns to have a sufficient tax base which allows us to fund large-scale improvement projects in water, sewer, transportation, and recreation. In 2017, government readjusted the cost-sharing agreement, which severely affected some classifications such as recreation and building projects. This resulted in towns having to put forth higher capital to support the shift in the cost-sharing arrangements. If elected, will your party protect the present 90-10 arrangement for towns such as Holyrood? And will you be willing to consider returning all project classifications to 90-10 versus the 60-40 for recreation, buildings, and fire halls? Can you explain your position on this question? So, Mr. Murphy, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, not a problem. And I believe in the survivability and the efficacy, if you will, of the small town and the problems associated, particularly with revenue generation. It was, like I said, one of the things that I already tackled. The 90-10 arrangement, of course, was something that was negotiated years ago between municipalities and the provincial government. And I fully believe that unless you are going to have a 90-10 arrangement, municipalities like ours, our small municipalities along the shore, are going to have trouble with the 60-40 arrangements. There has to be some advocacy done here. There has to be some justice done when it comes to the return of the 90-10 policy, mainly because our municipalities, our small municipalities, depend on it. If we are to have a growth mindset in place for government, we have to have the ability to be able to meet the challenges, the fiscal challenges, and meet the fiscal realities of a small town. So I fully believe in the 90-10 arrangement. As regards to the 60-40, I was actually unaware, and thanks for letting me know, actually, when I saw the question, that it had gone to 60-40. This was a little bit alarming, and I don't like the thought of municipalities having to go that 60-40 arrangement. The 90-10 was working just fine and supplied that impetus to growth for the smaller municipalities. And for a town like Holyrood, that has been showing some amazing growth in the last couple of years, I think that this is only going to be worthy of a town like Holyrood to see the rewards of the bounty of the 90-10 funding arrangement. So I'd be more than willing to advocate for you on that behalf and to justify the 90-10 arrangement for other communities, not only in the district of Harbour Main, but all over the province, because we always should have, in my mind, we should always have the mindset of growth, never for shrinkage and never to be hindered in the way that we want to promote growth in our cities and towns. So again, I don't mind advocating for that. I fully believe in that when it comes to the funding of municipalities and giving them a hand up. And like I said, we should always focus on growth and never focus on shrinkage or having an inability to afford something for the citizens that are there so that we can attract new people to our communities. It's as simple as that.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that response. So we'll move on to question number 2. So question number 2 is concerning the connection to the St. John's regional water supply. So Holyrood is planning for expansion in both residential and commercial and business. We want to act now to ensure our infrastructure can support the growth our town will see. Water is one of the key deliverables, and therefore we are focused on finding long-term solutions to a reliable, safe water supply. The town's water system is currently supplied 100% from drilled wells. Locally, we are increasing our storage capacity. We are improving our aging lines. We are providing fire flow capacity where possible. The key to finding and initiating solutions is developing a strategic plan to address future demand. The St. John's Regional Water Supply has implications for our town. If we can tie into the St. John's Regional Water Supply, we could concentrate on ensuring we have the appropriate infrastructure in place to take advantage of that ability. If the town has any indication that this could be a solution for long-term water availability, we could plan for that event and factor that source into our planning. What is your party's position on this initiative? Would your party support such infrastructure sharing and contributing to the infrastructure build?
There you go. It's a very good question. And I haven't got an answer back on that particular question yet, although I've asked. So I'll probably have to get back to you later. But my feeling is on this, I don't know if there's been a hydrological study, for example, of water levels in nearby ponds or anything that are around the immediate Holyrood area. For example, uphill from Holyrood, some of the ponds that are on the other side of the highway, for example, that we can tap into. I know of the Lees Pond project, for example, up behind Harbour Main, that can probably do some supplying when it comes to the 4 communities on that side that are associated with that project from years ago. That has, well, basically up behind Avondale too. Avondale has tapped into it, but other communities need to tie in. So when it comes to good, clean water, it's a necessity for anybody, for anybody's community to have. And it's also an impetus for growth too as well, good, clean water. So I fully believe in advocating for that. Certainly, water is universal. It should not be owned by one party. And I think that if there's an opportunity where Holyrood can actually avail of the water supply and the water supply shed area, that it should be allowed to do so. And no community should be left without it, put it that way. So as regards to that, I think that certainly in my own mind that there has to be some more study done. And I think that if there's an efficacy there where you know, the water supply can be maintained at the same time while you put more people in it. If you practice water conservation measures too at the same time, then I think everybody can get in on the St. John's and area water supply and water supply shed area. So again, lots more study, the practice of conservation, the preservation of your own groundwater and everything. I think that all these are impetus for growth as well. And I think that we can carry on and probably reach some kind of an agreement where we can tap into that water supply area.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the response. So we can move along to question number 3. So question number 3 is concerning the condition of Route 60. So the condition of a large portion of Route 60 that runs through our community has been an issue that the Town of Holyrood has been raising with government for the last number of years. The Town of Holyrood has been in constant contact with the Department of Transportation, reporting sections that need repairs and also providing, at their request, input into the summer maintenance program. But we are still left with a deplorable driving surface. The sections that are of significant note are from Mars Bridge to Seal Cove and large portions of North Arm. If elected, can you explain how your party will address these issues and ensure this project is given top priority? These sections need ditching, culverting, proper shoulder installation, and new asphalt. This work can wait no longer. It has to happen now.
There you go.
You
I
ready?
think for a second I was losing your signal, but I did get your point around Route 60. One of the things that I also did during my tenure in the House of Assembly was present government with the idea of a 5-year rotating roads plan. The whole idea of that roads plan was to make sure that all roads were going to be well maintained and be revisited every 5 years for any major repairs or anything like that that had to be done. I know that roads plan, have they stuck to it? I'm not really quite sure. What I do know is that there has been a missed opportunity this year to get Route 60 done. I don't know if it was a poor cell job that was done on it. That much I can't answer, but here's the way that I would have sold the repairs that are needed to Route 60, because I fully believe that, like I said, it was a missed opportunity. We all know that the price of oil, of course, crashed down to where it was to. The price of asphalt also went down by about 45 to 50% of what it was in the year previous. For every kilometer of road pavement that you do, to answer part of the question, cost about $250,000 to my understanding. With the cheaper asphalt costs, we could have had probably 1.5 kilometers of pavement down for the same price as what we would have had for 1 kilometer of pavement down. So we missed an opportunity. I don't know, like I said, if it was a poor cell job that was done, who advocated for the roads that were out here, but somebody missed out on a golden opportunity to get this road done. Now, I live in Seal Cove. I am dealing with this road, in particular, everybody's favorite lump in the road by Hickey's Building Supplies and CVS is of note. And I noticed the roads, even coming down through Holyrood, you've got, in some cases, contractors that make a cut in the road that do an improper repair that is never visited again. So there are some improper repairs that are done to the roads and they are left. Why that is, I don't know, but I've seen that so many times where improper cuts have been made on the road that I think that something should be done as regards to getting those fixed properly by contractors anytime they're putting in water and sewer. That's a part two to it, I guess, and that would probably entail agreements with contractors and everything as regards to coming back and revisiting repairs that they would have made after putting in infrastructure. That would be an open-ended question. But again, back to the main point, when it comes to the cost of infrastructure, road maintenance can only happen when it's done right. And you said it right when you talked about ditching and everything on the side too, and proper drainage. Because if you don't have proper drainage, the undermining bedrock and the sand that's underneath the pavement, of course, tends to get undermined, and then roads start to get cracks in the pavement and everything. I've proposed any number of times as well during my tenure in the House that the government look at new experimentation when it comes to putting in recycling of plastics, for example, to extend road repair life. The University, I think it was of Clemson at the time, one of the studies I read, actually talked about the extension of the life of asphalt from about 10 years to 20 years, and with very little maintenance work having to be done. So I think all these are opportunities too as well, with opportunities for employment, when it comes to the creation of green jobs, when it comes to even recycling issues that we have in this province, when it comes to taking old tires, for example, putting it into crumble and mixing that within our road asphalt in order to extend the life of it. That's also answering an environmental question too, by the way, that is not only becoming a road, but it's a means of recycling a road too at the same time. So, when it comes to the other argument, the fiscal argument, when it comes to the repair of roads, that's also one of the arguments that I tried to get government to answer. And I think it was in 2014, they came up with a partial funding initiative for municipalities when it came to some of the provincial gas tax. So I'll leave it at that. I know it's a long answer. It's a very detailed answer, I think, but I'm more than willing to go ahead and advocate for Route 60 because I live right on Route 60, just off it, and I use it every day, and I know exactly its condition, and it's deplorable. And I will agree with everybody on that one.
Okay, thank you, sir. Moving along to question number 4. So it's around regionalization. So regionalization is a positive move, would be a positive move for the entire Conception Bay Centre area. It can allow for better allocation of resources, allow for one central fire department, combine the efforts of all councils into one larger voice, and will also allow for better allocation of other equipment and essential services. If elected, what is your vision for regionalization? And what would be the first issue you would tackle? And then where would you like to see the region at the end of your term? Go ahead, sir.
That's there you go. I'm on the air. That's a great question, and one of the things that I'm going to be looking for is common ground. So far in my meetings with the municipalities in the area, and I think that this is meeting number 7 with the municipalities in the district, I've taken the time out to hear their concerns, and I hear two concerns mainly. When it comes to regionalization, I hear the word cooperation. I hear a willingness for all communities to cooperate. And I think that, again, going back to two words, common ground, find the common ground on the project. I've heard, secondly, to that, water and infrastructure. And those are key words to everybody that is here in this district. If you were to attract families to this area and you want something for them to depend on, it's my mind that you start with water and sewer next to road infrastructure and you know, the good essentials for attracting families. So I'm looking at that. Third to that, when I look around some of the smaller communities on the shoreline between here and Clark's Beach, they're at a bit of a disadvantage because they can't afford recreational facilities. And that's kind of important for seniors too at the same time, not only to our young people. For example, where do you go for a swim next to the swimming hole, for example, down in Harbour Main? Uh, where do you go for a skate? It's either Bay Roberts or CBS. You know, it's a long travel time between two. So the impetus to even keeping seniors in your own communities and having proper recreation and physical exercise activities happening has to do with that. That's the part number three. It helps to grow a healthy community too at the same time. So there are any number of projects that I can think of right off the bat that would be good to link everybody together and to tie everybody together. And but I keep coming back to two words: common ground. And like I said, I see that there. And I see a willingness to cooperate, and in particular, the four communities over on the shoreline that cooperated when it came to their to fire equipment, for example. But I see other opportunities there too at the same time, and one of those, of course, being recreational activities too, and the recreational facilities. So, you know, I think that we can successfully grow the communities, attract younger comes back to two words: common ground. And I think that is there, and I think that it needs to be communicated. And I see myself as possibly being a mediator when it comes to those initiatives.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the detailed response there, for sure. So question number 5 surrounds ambulance service and response times. So the response times for ambulance service has been highlighted as concerning by the residents of Holyrood and surrounding area. Excuse me. We are lucky enough to have a number of ambulances stationed in our town that serve the CBC area, but response times have still been documented as being substandard. Our fire department, which now consists of a combination of volunteer and fully paid members, is constantly called upon to respond to medical emergencies. This has subsequently increased the volume of calls that our fire department responds to on a yearly basis. If elected, will your party commit to a review of the ambulance response times in the Holyrood area and provide additional resources to help with the high call demand? Go ahead, sir.
Thanks again, and it's a great question because I sit back and I talk to ambulance operators out here, and you know, in comparison, I guess ambulances are meant for one job, fire trucks are meant for another job, police cars are meant for their own job. It would be unfair to use fire equipment in response to a regular ambulance call. Heart attacks, for example, or I think everybody knows what I mean. In looking at ambulance response times, I think certainly I haven't seen any reports as regards to what those response times would be. But what I hear are issues as regards to wait times, red alerts that are out there. And there comes a time when you've got an aging population out here in some areas of the shoreline that we have, that it becomes critical, the response time. If you're going to have more calls, have to add capacity. That's only natural. It happens with me. My other job, by the way, I'm the manager of a taxi stand. If it gets busy, we get an inordinate number of calls on New Year's Eve. we don't park cars. We add more capacity so that the customers' requests are met. If people are having more health issues, we know that there are going to be more response times. We have no other choice but to add capacity. So I look at it in that regard, that capacity, study on capacity and what other communities are facing also has to be done, not only on our own shoreline, but in this province. And I would certainly be advocating for that. One of the things that I did in the House of Assembly, by the way, was the move over legislation. I knew the importance of the emergency worker out there who was working on the highway. It was an occupational health and safety thing for me, at the same time as the personal safety of the workers while they were answering calls and bringing the attention of the motorists out there to the plight of the highway workers out there. So I believe in working for those people too, at the same time, the people that are working in that particular industry, that particular trade. To me, it's heartfelt, the job that they do. And I think that we should have a heartfelt response, a response of kindness, if you will, so that we don't leave these people under pressure. And I've met ambulance drivers and responders that are certainly under pressure and overworked. So capacity is an issue, and it has to be addressed. If we have private ambulance services that are out here now, one of the things I hear is the rate of pay, how much they have to work. Again, it's a capacity issue. We have to deal with some of the owners of the ambulance services in order to meet the same common ground as our workers that are working on the government level, if you will, for Eastern Health. So certainly willing to go to bat for them. I believe in their cause. I believe it's fair, it's just, and it's right. And it means, in particular, for the safety of people in this area. And if you have a poor ambulance service and somebody is really serious about moving into a community, healthcare is the second thing I'd look at next to infrastructure, roads, that sort of thing. So it's kind of important, I guess, to the growing essentials of any small community. But in particular, I look at the weight of the work that these people are doing now, and I say to myself that it's unfair and certainly needs to be addressed through capacity. And that's the first way I think that I would do to go to bat for them, to actually try to meet that. It's a grave concern, and it has played on my mind, and I'm more than willing, like I said, to address it.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we'll move to our last question. So it's a party's position to continue support for Oceans Holyrood. So Holyrood has been proactive in taking full advantage of the presence of Marine Institute and to use the ocean sector as a diversification tool for the economic viability of our town and the region. We have been met with success in gaining attention from marine-based companies, as well as we see Marine Institute move into the next phase of their new research building. The town continues to explore innovative ways to engage with these companies who are coming to Holyrood to do work at Marine Institute. There are several technology projects already taking place in our harbor, and we have a new fiber optic cable that is now being laid on the ocean floor right here in Holyrood. The town has had great support from both federal and provincial levels of government through the Oceans Holyrood initiative. This initiative gives us flexibility to focus on the sector and find ways to build long-term sustainable activity, which will translate into jobs and security for present and future residents. If elected, what is your party's position on committing continued support for the Oceans Initiative and to build our town, region, and province through the ocean sector? You're on the, just give us your response to that, please.
Sure, and that's a great question. And of course, anybody who's ever driven through Holyrood would know when they look over on the North Shore by the old railway bed, I guess, the immense growth that's happening over there and how much the infrastructure has been placed there through the oceans programs, both federal and provincial through the Marine Institute over the years. The federal government has already pledged to make it a long-term programming. And I think that Holyrood is well positioned to take advantage of more funding when it comes to the federal programming for the oceans initiatives that are out there. Working with Ken McDonald, I can say myself and him already have a great working relationship, and I look forward to getting more money out of Minister Seamus O'Regan too at the same time to maintain that programming in Holyrood. The only thing that Holyrood has against it when it comes to that is a north wind that comes down the bay sometimes can be pretty sharp, but it's beautifully centered. It's not far from town at all. It's about a 27-minute drive from the Veterans Memorial, I guess. And you know, it's centered right on the water. It's you know, excuse me, right on the edge, I guess you could say, of the fishing industry. There's still some fishing that happens too. So the oceans initiatives are pretty important. And I'll tell you what else is going to be pretty important. I feel that I'm going to be pursuing is a little bit more technology work out in this area, because technology and oceans, of course, and robotics and everything are closely connected. And I believe that there is room for a lot of expansion to happen right on this shore. It's also going to be supplying imaginative initiatives for our children to be able to look towards the oceans in a different manner. And we know that with the oceans initiatives as well comes a big chunk of environmental research as well. So, you know, there's an immense opportunity out here for the tech sector, for growth, for opportunities for our youth. And all we had to do was turn our eyes to the water. And like I said, I think there's an immense opportunity here to launch some good cooperative programs with not only with the provincial government, but as well with our federal partners too. So I look forward to hiking the football on that one and seeing Holyrood carry it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, even the robotics program out here is a great place for people to start out here. And I can only congratulate the Marine Institute and congratulate Holyrood for even attracting the Marine Institute to come out here and set up shop. And yeah, the Oceans Initiative is a big one, and probably represents a new tech venture for us too at the same time, and a new opportunity for growth. And you know, we're only young into it. It's only been a few years really for Holyrood, but congratulations on getting your feet wet. And it's some good work there.
Thank you, sir, for your answer there. So that ends our formal question and answer period, Mr. Murphy. So next what we'll do is we'll give you 5 minutes, just for up to 5 minutes for some closing remarks. And it's your opportunity to, you know, bring anything else up or make us aware of anything that you've come across on your campaign. So you can start when you're ready.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to address everybody tonight. And this is a lot of fun. It's another way of reaching out to, I guess, to the citizens of Holyrood. It's another way of communicating with councils. And like I said, I simply love it. The chance to talk to councils and to mediate with them and to cooperate on ideas and actually execute them. And I had fun with it in the past, and I'm looking forward to serving you in the future. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to get to work. I think everybody out there has got my own personal cell phone that I've been using out there now on the campaign, and I hope that they would hold on to it, and I hope I get a chance to fully use it. But I'm excited about all the initiatives that I put together, some of the imaginative ideas, and let's not forget history either. That there are an awful lot of unique buildings that are out here that are surrounding the shores. I have to note the Holyrood Museum, for example, when I had opportunity to some of the historical artifacts that are in there. I think that there's an initiative where we can expand that, by the way, and probably pursue some provincial or federal money to make that bigger, because that is going to be an essential come look see in the coming years. And I applaud you for that. You know, you've got to come out to Holyrood, you've got to explore it, people, and come out and see what they've got. It's a great place to raise a family. And in the context of years, it's not just a squid jigging ground either, but it's also a place that has got a lot of futuristic growth and potential when it comes to technology and oceans. And we just touched on that. So listen, thank you very much for the time. You're all doing great work. I know that sometimes governing a municipality can be hard. I'll thank you for your work, and I hope that you all re-offer again in September, because I know that you know, the work that's being done through municipalities is an essential building block as well to the province. So congratulations on your own work too at the same time. And again, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for obviously, like I said before, we can really appreciate your potential busy schedule during the campaign. So we really thank you for taking time out of that tonight to come meet with us and discuss some issues that that we see as very important and high on our priority list. So once again, thank you, all the best, and hopefully we'll get to work with you in the future. Everybody, I'd like to introduce the NDP candidate for the Harbour Main district, Mr. Tony Chadwick. Thank you, Tony, for taking time out of what I can only assume is a very busy schedule as you're in the middle of your campaign. So thank you for putting aside some time to spend with councillors and staff in the town of Holyrood tonight. So we've already ran through the format of tonight's meeting. So Tony, we'll get right into it, and we'll start off by asking you to introduce yourself, your party, your leader, and why you think council and the citizens of Holyrood should give you their vote. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tony Chadwick, and I'm the NDP candidate for Harbour Main district. I have lived in Newfoundland since the summer of 1967, when I immigrated to take up a position to teach French at Memorial University, retiring at the rank of full professor in 2004 after 37 years of service. I have been involved in the St. John's community in various ways, in amateur theatre as actor and director, in choral singing in a number of choirs, as a board member for the Newfoundland Symphony Orchestra, the Newfoundland Symphony Youth Orchestra, the Philharmonic Choir, and most recently as a board member for Gower Street United Church. I have 3 daughters, all born here, but sadly unable to find work in this province. I'll have more to say later about outmigration. My first marriage lasted 28 years. My second marriage is still going strong after 23. Politically, I have been involved with the NDP since Tom Mayo's by-election campaign against John Crosbie in 1972, and more recently with Lorraine Michaels' by-election victory in 2006 and subsequent general elections until she retired. I now serve on Alison Coffin's District Association in St. John's East Kiddie-Biddy. At the university, I was involved in the campaign to unionize faculty and librarians and helped organize Mumford's strike in the year 2000. Alison Coffin, leader of the province's New Democratic Party, has demonstrated during the recent minority government that there is a different way of doing politics. Her focus then and now is on developing policies that will benefit you if you do not have sufficient means to live comfortably and with dignity. If you are employed, then the very minimum you should be paid is $15 an hour with enough hours to bring you above the poverty line. Currently, that is not the case. 60,000 people, the majority of them women, are precariously employed or underemployed. If you are in that group, the stress you endure is enormous. Who will mind the children? Who will care for aging parents? Where will the next meal come from? Will there be enough money to pay the rent, heat the home? And if you're not in that group, how do you find the extra resources to help them out? Yes, our province is facing financial challenges. We have been for years. But successive Liberal and Conservative governments have not made things better for everyday people. In fact, they have made things worse. Do you remember the Liberal government budget, the cuts to government services, the costly levy, and the attempt to close half of the public libraries? At the same time, executives at Nalcor got bonuses on top of their fat salaries as a reward for screwing up the Muskrat Falls project. who have to listen. But in contrast with the leaders of the Liberal and Conservative parties who come from old money families and whose fathers have had prominent political careers, Alison was born in Cornerbrook, raised on the Burin Peninsula with her family's roots in Jobat's Arm. Her father was a teacher, her mother a nurse. Since the 1990s, she has worked as an economist and taught at Memorial. She understands the challenges faced by everyday people, and she will fight for them. Thank you. That's my introduction.
Thank you, sir. Very well received. So what we'll do now, Mr. Chatwick, is we'll get right into the questions that were provided. So we'll start off with question number 1, and it's around cost-shared funding for municipalities. So the cost of providing reliable infrastructure to residents is challenging from the perspective of rising prices for project completion and the ability of small towns to have a sufficient tax base, which allows us to fund large-scale improvements in water, sewer, transportation, and recreation. In 2017, government adjusted the cost share arrangement, which severely affected some classifications such as recreation and building projects. This resulted in towns having to put forth higher capital to support the shift in the cost-sharing arrangement. If elected, will your party protect the present 90-10 arrangement for towns such as Holyrood, and will you be willing to consider returning all project classification funding to 90-10 versus the 60-40 currently in place for recreation, buildings, and fire halls? Can you explain your position on this question? You've got 5 minutes.
Okay. The NDP in its platform is clear. The relationship between municipalities and government needs to be repaired. The 90-10 formula was a fair agreement and enabled municipalities to move ahead carefully and within their budget to improve facilities for their residents. Why the Liberals decided to change that formula for recreational facilities and fire halls is beyond me. The NDP, led by Alison Coffin, recognizes the importance of the work done by municipalities and will be an active partner in finding solutions to their challenges. The problem with Route 60 I will come to later, but generally the state of roads in the district is a major concern for residents and is a frequent complaint for tourists. Poor road conditions result in a shorter life for vehicles, frequent repair bills, and a level of anger and frustration that does nothing for one's blood pressure. Holyrood wants to attract industry and businesses of the kind that now occupies the site of the former fish plant. But without reasonable help from the provincial government in the form of financing for water and sewer, such development is going to be hampered, if not blocked entirely. Supporting community councils and the everyday people they serve is part and parcel of the NDP's focus on helping residents in this province lead their lives in comfort and dignity. If we don't, we risk increasing the out-migration of young families, leaving the province with an aging population and a huge gap in our demographic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very thought out answer there. So we'll move on to question number 2, Mr. Chatwick. It's concerning the connection to the St. John's regional water supply. Holyrood is planning for expansion in both residential and businesses. We want to act now to ensure our infrastructure can support growth in the town. Water is one of our key deliverables, and therefore we have focused on finding long-term solutions for a reliable, safe water supply. The town's water system is supplied 100% from drilled wells at the moment. Locally, we are increasing our storage capacity, we are improving our aging lines and pipes, and providing fire flow capacities where possible. The key to finding and initiating solutions is developing a strategic plan to address future demand. The St. John's regional water supply has implications for our town. If we can tie into the St. John's regional water supply, we could concentrate on ensuring we have the appropriate infrastructure in place to take advantage of that ability. If the town had an indication that this could be a solution for long-term water availability, we could plan for that event and factor that source into our planning. What is your party's position on this initiative? Would your party support such infrastructure sharing and contribute to the infrastructure build? If we could get your answer now, please.
Okay. The NDP does not have a specific proposal for this project. Personally, I had not heard of such a possible link, so I don't have a policy statement to share with you. However, if any engineering problems can be overcome, the sharing of the St. John's regional water supply makes eminent sense and would fit with a general plan for the regionalization of the Northeast Avalon. There are some caveats. In the last 3 years, there has not been a problem with the supply of water to current customers, thanks to a relatively high level of rainfall. However, in the last decade, restrictions have had to be put in place to conserve water during the summer months as levels in the reservoirs were getting too low. The addition of the pond in Petty Harbour has alleviated those concerns, but the development in Galway is racing ahead, and the water tank that had to be built to accommodate new housing has dealt with the problem of pressure, but not of supply. So I have some questions for you. Has any study been undertaken concerning the engineering aspect, including its cost? I'm not a geographer, so I don't know how difficult it is to get water from the St. John's regional water supply into Holyrood. It obviously is going to need some pumping system, a series maybe of pumping stations, right, to get that water from the St. John's regional supply into Holyrood. But I don't know what the answer is there or what the cost would be. And so I also wonder, is there an existing potential supply of water that could be tapped to serve the Holyrood district? And again, at what cost? I don't have any glib answer to these questions, but whether I am elected or not, I will push the NDP caucus to seek answers from the government and the bureaucracy. And I'll have more to say on the question of regionalisation. And obviously this fits into that. When Conception Bay South was being further developed, St. John's managed to include, I don't know if all of CBS was included, but a large part of CBS was included in the regional water supply. And that seems to be working quite well. We also already include Mount Pearl, and I believe Portugal Cove St. Phillips is also included in that. But there are other communities further to the north, including places like Flat Rock, Pooch Cove, Bawleen, Torbay, I'm not sure about. I'm not a water engineer, but I think the idea should be to include all those communities in a regional water supply. But we need, first of all, to determine what the cost is going to be, if the engineering problems can be overcome without too much difficulty. But certainly in principle, right, we would be in favor as part of a regionalization plan to include Holyrood in such a scheme. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir, for that answer. We'll move to question number 3. The subject here is the condition of Route 60. So the condition of a large portion of Route 60 that runs through our community has been an issue that the Town of Holyrood has been raising with government for the last 3 years. The Town of Holyrood has been in constant contact with the Department of Transportation, reporting sections that need repair and also providing, at their request, input into the summer maintenance program, but we are still left with deplorable driving surfaces. The sections that are of significant note are from Mars Bridge to Seal Cove and also portions of North Arm. If elected, Can you explain how your party will address these issues and assure this project is given top priority? These sections need ditching, culverting, proper shoulder installation, and new asphalt. This work can't wait any longer. It has to happen now. Can we get your response, please?
Yes, I agree with the urgency of your question and pledge that, if elected, I will work towards a solution. Past efforts to deal with the condition of roads through the province have sadly been politicized. If a district's MHA was on the government side of the house, then it was more likely that roadworks would take place, frequently just before an election. That situation began with the Smallwood years, sometimes with farcical results, as a gravel road would suddenly receive an asphalt surface, but only within a town's boundaries. When George Murphy was an NDP MHA, he proposed a 5-year plan for road repairs that would have introduced some fairness, not to say sanity, into the process. That private member's bill passed, but no action was taken on it. As I indicated earlier, road repairs are not simply a question of aesthetics or comfort. Poor roads lead to more repairs to vehicles, which, in the absence of public transport, are absolutely essential. Vehicles don't last as long, and I'm sure poor road conditions contribute to accidents. I believe that transportation is one of the social determinants of health, so it is possible that spending now on improving road conditions will lead to a reduction in health costs in the future. Finally, a poor driving experience often results in tourists not returning to the province and in telling their friends not to bother planning if they value their. So in short, it is a poor economic decision not to maintain major roads in good driving condition. Now, I've only recently been traveling the district. I don't have a car in St. John's, I don't need one, but my wife hired a car, and since Tuesday, we have been driving around the province, driving around the district, right, while I have been canvassing, knocking on doors, trying to listen to people's concerns. And the state of roads, right, particularly Route 60, right, is deplorable. Fortunately, I'm driving a rental vehicle. Without it, I think I might even have turned back if it had been my own car. So I agree entirely with your concern, and I will, if I'm not elected, I will push the NDP caucus to push on your behalf to get those urgent road repairs done as soon as possible. But we need to have it within the context of a long-term plan. It's no good saying, oh, we'll deal with this section of road because it's got really bad potholes and do 200 or 300 meters of road. We need to have a plan that is going to deal with problems over time as expeditiously as possible, not in a slapdash and rushed manner, which leads to inefficiency, poor costing, and so on. So yes, I agree with the need for improvements in Route 60. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chatwick. Moving on to question number 4, a vision for regionalization. So regionalization would be a positive move for the entire Conception Bay Center area. It can allow for better allocation of resources, allow for one central fire department, and the combination of efforts from all councils into one large voice. If elected, what is your vision for regionalization? What would be the first issue you would tackle? And where would you like to see the region at the end of your term? Go ahead, please.
Okay. Regionalization, from a financial point of view, makes eminent sense. Resources can be allocated in a more efficient way, duplication can be avoided, and with more residents, the regional government can speak with a louder voice. 2 problems come to mind. Where should the boundary be drawn? And how do you maintain community identity within the larger grouping? I was talking to a resident of Chapel's Cove yesterday, and while the question of regionalisation was not specifically raised, it was clear that from his point of view, decisions made in that grouping of Harbour Main, Chapel's Cove, Lakeview always favoured Harbour Main. He didn't cite a particular unfair act, but it was clear that he identified with Chapel's Cove, not with the larger entity. For some residents, being part of a large grouping may result in a higher tax burden, since they would now receive services they had not received before. Nostalgia for a former and cheaper way of life would need to be overcome through a carefully constructed public relations campaign. If we consider briefly the Northeast Avalon as a possible region, how far up the shore would you go to draw the boundary? Bay Balls? Would it include the whole of the Harbour Main electoral district? A comprehensive study would need to be undertaken to address these questions and others that I have not mentioned. If consultants could be identified quickly, then perhaps within 12 months, a report could be submitted to government. There would then need to be a period of consultation with the communities involved, the results analysed, and then a proposal submitted to those communities via a referendum. I can only hazard a guess at the timeline, but if the government can be pushed to keep the matter firmly on the agenda, then regionalisation should be in place before the next scheduled election in 4 years' time. I think I've indicated in passing what I would consider the important first move, and that would be an analysis of potential boundaries and consultation with the communities involved. I think rather than a top-down approach, right, we need to find out the opinions of residents in the potential regional area. And only when that has been completed and the results of those interviews and consultations analysed, could we then move ahead and determine where the boundaries are going to lie. It's not going to be easy. I indicated a succession of communities on the southern shore. But I could have gone on. Do we go as far as Trepassey? Do we include the whole of the Avalon Peninsula? It's not a simple matter. I think a certain amount of regionalization could take place on a smaller scale. We could, for example, take part of the Harbour Main district. We would probably have to exclude the part of Conception Bay South that is in that electoral district. But we could take the boundary from, say, Seal Cove and, oh no, sorry, Seal Cove is part of Conception Bay South. We could take from Holyrood through the rest of the Harbour Main district and perhaps go even a little further. I don't know. But that would be one possibility. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this area, but I am definitely convinced that regionalization is the way forward. And I would see Holyrood as being one of the major communities in such a regional plan, right? To be at the forefront of such a project. I don't, unfortunately, have anything else to add. Okay.
No, that's good. Thank you. So we'll move on to question number 5, and it deals with ambulance service and response times. So the response times for ambulances has been highlighted as concerning for the residents of Holyrood. We are lucky enough to have a number of ambulances stationed in our town that serve the Conception Bay Centre area, but response times have been documented as being substandard. Our fire department, which now consists of a combination of volunteer and fully paid members, is constantly called upon to respond to medical emergencies. This has subsequently increased the volume of calls for our fire department. This has subsequently increased the volume of calls our fire department responds to on a yearly basis. If elected, will your party commit to a review of the ambulance response times in the Holyrood area and provide additional resources to help with a high call demand?
Okay, I'm going to answer this question in two parts. It'll be an indication of how much I'm learning as I go along. So I originally wrote, I don't know enough about how the ambulance service is financed to offer anything definitive. Clearly, a reliable ambulance service is a necessity. And if, as you say, the response time is substandard, even with a number of ambulances stationed in Holyrood, then the situation is in urgent need of study. Is the financing model not sufficient for both vehicles and paramedics? Are there not enough paramedics available in Holyrood? If there are not, then it might be a question of burnout. If the number of times a crew is on call is too high, then the pressures on family life and mental health come into play. Has the situation grown worse in the last year? Then perhaps the COVID epidemic may be to blame, a situation that an increase in personnel and in pay may remedy. After writing the above, I discovered by chance that a study of the problem was concluded in 2013 and submitted to government in 2015. The POMAX report did an analysis of the ambulance service for the whole of the province and made detailed recommendations for improving the service. It included the need for a province-wide clearinghouse for all 911 calls, a review of the availability of ambulance vehicles and the paramedics to operate them, and the problems associated with hours of work and the pay scale for those crews. As far as I can determine, no action was taken by government to respond to the report. Whether or not I am elected, I will pursue the matter with the NDP caucus, since, as a recent report on ambulance service in the St. John's area has shown, in 2020, there were 2,000 code red situations. 2,000, where response time for ambulance service or the inability of emergency departments to deal with incoming cases, of which, so out of the 2,000, 475 calls received no response or were pending. I found that report absolutely staggering in both ways, not only the 2020 report for the St. John's area, and I'm not sure why Holyrood and other parts of the district were not included, but the fact that the government received a detailed report in 2015, and did nothing. Now, there were costs involved, right? But as far as I can determine, no study was done of that report, not even an attempt to perhaps dispense with building something new to accommodate a province-wide 911 call center. And I'm at a loss. Did the people in St. John's, the people in government, not care? I didn't hear any outcry from the past member for this district or from any other MHA. I'm not even sure how many actually knew that the report was done. Did government just sit on it? In which case, it shows a really callous approach, right, to the health of the residents of this province. And certainly, right, I will be pushing hard to get something done about this situation. I know from what I have read in that recent newspaper report about the situation in 2020, that paramedic crews are finding it difficult to keep up with demand. Not only are the number of calls increasing, but now that they are faced with the extra protocols of dealing with the COVID situation, then every time they respond to a call, they worry, are they going to, in spite of wearing masks, in spite of all the hand washing, right, in spite of everything like that, are they going to contract the disease and bring it back into their families? It's an awful, awful situation. And beyond pressuring government to do something about it immediately, I don't have to offer. Sorry.
Thank you, sir, for your response to that question. And question number 6, which is our last question. It's the topic is party's position to continued support for the Holyrood Oceans Initiative. So Holyrood has been proactive in taking full advantage of the presence of Marine Institute and to use the ocean sector as a diversification tool for the economic viability of our town and the region. We have been met with success in gaining attention from marine-based companies, and as we see Marine Institute move into the next phase of the new research building, the town continues to explore innovative ways to engage with companies who will come to Holyrood to do work with Marine Institute. There are several technology projects already taking place in our harbour, and a new fibre optic cable is being laid on the ocean floor right here in Holyrood. The town has had great support from both federal and provincial levels of government through the Oceans Holyrood initiative. This initiative gives us the flexibility to focus on the sector and find ways to build long-term sustainable economic activity that will translate to jobs and security for present and future residents. If elected, what is your party's position on committing continued support for the Oceans Initiative and to build our town, region, and province through the ocean sector?
Okay. I've been watching with interest the development of marine search capabilities in Holyrood and applaud the Town Council for the splendid work that you have been doing. Bravo. But you are right not to sit on your laurels. Ocean research in all its forms is a very competitive field, especially in the Northwest Atlantic. Research stations in Nova Scotia and the Northeast United States are all eager to attract new ventures and are not above attempting to poach existing ones. The Marine Institute does have a global profile, and that will help in furthering requests for funding. Certainly, the NDP will do everything possible to ensure future development of this important research centre. The more we can diversify our economy as we transition away from oil and gas, the brighter our future will be. In the meantime, this isn't really a response to your question. The NDP will certainly do all it can, right, both within government and outside of it, to attract and to attract more people to the Holyrood Research Centre and to support the efforts that you're already undertaking. This is just a suggestion. So, in the meantime, have you asked the President of Memorial and the Vice President Research to visit? Getting an endorsement from senior administration with an appropriate media campaign before and after will enhance your ability to attract even more ventures in the future. And I think that way you can also get general support from the province's population, because they're all ready to cheerlead initiatives like this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chatwick, for the response to that last question. So we'll move right in now to the last segment of our meeting, and we'll give you 5 minutes for your closing remarks. And this is your chance to bring any important information to our attention. And you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Just before the election was called, the Liberal government engaged in old-style politics. 16 announcements of funds for a variety of projects, reminiscent of the small woody doling out money for road paving. Not to be outdone, the Conservatives focused on job creation as a way out of our financial difficulties, kick-starting that process with $10 million to be handed over to companies to encourage such a venture. The similarity? Both are top-down, old-style pork barreling. By contrast, Alison Coffin and the NDP team are proposing a rapid increase in the minimum wage, helping small businesses with the elimination of the 3% business tax. Neither Liberals or Tories have mentioned their roles in the disaster that is Muskrat Falls, a project whose completion date keeps receding into the future as technical problems, which should have been foreseen, mount up, adding further to the exorbitant cost. Muskrat Falls started as a vanity project for Danny Williams, but it was the Liberals who continued the insanity. Offshore oil, long considered the savior of the province, is now in a kind of limbo. Low prices on the world markets, a declining demand for petroleum products, and the increasing need to protect the planet from disastrous warming all point to an urgent need to plan a transition from oil to renewables. Not a word, not even a hint of such a transition plan from Liberals or Tories. Yet if workers in that sector are to be protected, such a plan should have been developed years ago. As strange as it may seem, there are projects already underway to retrain oil workers who have already great sets of skills to work in the solar energy sector. MUN engineering students are developing solar energy uses in Labrador. Iron and Earth, a collective comprised of former oil workers based in Calgary, has a branch in Newfoundland, and they have been working with the Autism Society to build a year-round solar-heated greenhouse in St. John's to grow produce for their cafe. Both of these initiatives can be readily transferred to any part of the province. Those are just two small examples of ways that we need to be thinking about transition to a different kind of future. We also need to include the fishery that's become, in many ways, a forgotten industry. For I don't know how long, right? The federal government, which has assumed almost absolute control over our fishery, has treated the Newfoundland fishery as a make-weight, right, for contracts with other countries for auto parts, right, for various other trade deals. And so quotas have been given to countries that didn't even have a tradition of fishing in our waters. Now, the fishing industry, sorry, I get emotional about this. The fishing industry is now being taken over by international conglomerates. I don't think there is still a Newfoundland company that still operates in Newfoundland waters. It's all owned elsewhere. All our natural resources, which should be of benefit for this province, the profits go out of the province to shareholders elsewhere. It's an absolutely shocking situation that needs to be remedied as soon as possible. So the choice is yours. And here I'm addressing not only the council, but other voters who may be tuning into this later. The choice is yours. Do you want to reward old-style parties with a majority after this election? Or do you want to support the only party that is fighting for you and your families? Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you, Mr. Chatwick. It was definitely a pleasure to have you here with us tonight, be it all virtually. But nevertheless, we still got a great opportunity to put forth to yourself and the NDP party some of the issues that are really important for us here in Holyrood, and also the Harbour Main district as a whole. So again, thank you for taking some time out of what we all can appreciate is a very busy few days. I'm not really sure when the election will happen now, but I'm sure that'll become clear in the coming days. So,
if you would find it useful, I can email my answers so that people can. It's often difficult to take in because being an academic, I tend to condense things. And
Yep.
so you might want to look a little bit more closely at what I had to say.
Yep, sure.
Okay, I'll email that to you once this is finished. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chatwick, for attending tonight, and best of luck on Election Day. It is at this point that I would like to take the opportunity to thank the candidates for making themselves available tonight to speak to some of the issues and initiatives that are important to the town of Holyrood now and also for our future. The link to this video will be posted both on our Facebook and web pages for future viewing. I would also like to bring to your attention the current dates for the mail-in ballot voting process. Please note this information was taken from the Elections NL website on February the 18th. The deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot is 8 p.m. Friday, February 19th. And the deadline for a completed voting kit to be received at Elections NL is Friday, March 5th. The full list of requirements and a more detailed process can be found at www.elections.gov.nl.ca. On behalf of the town of Holyrood, I would like to thank you all for viewing this event, and we encourage everyone to cast your vote. Keep safe, observe the current COVID guidelines, and most of all, be kind. Thank you.